Hey, hi. Welcome to Someone Else's Movie, the original podcast where an actor, writer, director, or nebulous industry figure gives a little love to a movie they didn't make. I'm Norm Wilner. I'm a programmer at TIFF now, and this is the other thing I do. My guest this week is Gigi Saul Guerrero, a filmmaker who made her feature debut last year with Blumhouse's Bingo Hell. Before that, she helmed segments of Mexico Barbaro and the ABCs of Death 2.5, and episodes of Choose Your Victim, La Quinceañera, and The Purge, and wrote and directed Culture Shock, an episode of Hulu's horror anthology Into the Dark that's streaming in Canada right now on Hollywood Suite. Gigi picked The Exorcist, William Friedkin's blockbuster 1973 adaptation of William Peter Blatty's best-selling novel about a demonic incursion in contemporary Washington, where something that claims to be the devil possesses a sweet little girl named Regan McNeil, forcing her mother Chris to enlist the help of two Catholic priests to save her body and her soul. Linda Blair plays Regan, Ellen Burstyn is Chris, Jason Miller and Max von Sydow are the priests. And if you've seen The Exorcist, you've never forgotten any of them. This is Someone Else's Movie.
You know, I think The Exorcist was the first time I truly rebelled against my mom, not even my parents, because my dad's always like, oh, ask your mother. Always covers his butt with everything. But, for those who don't know me listening, like I'm from Mexico City. So we know, us Mexicans, us Latin Americans, we are very superstitious, very spiritual people. We believe in everything you can imagine, and so I grew up in a very Catholic house, super Catholic, a little bit strict. So I was just never allowed to watch anything horror, nothing at all. So really my curiosity was the devil. My curiosity was what was taking over. And, there was always something very strange with things my mom would do. Like I would find holy water under our beds. There was crosses of Jesus and Virgin Mary all over the house, candles, shrines. So there was always something very interesting to me, like the why. And my mom, she'd always freak out with certain things. Like she'd always be super superstitious. Like you would put your purse on the ground and she'd be like, no, mija, the devil's going to take your money, pick it up. Things like that. But she genuinely would be scared. And I could tell. And my sister and I, we would just make fun of her all the time for it. But she would always mention The Exorcist. She would always mention how when she was about 16, she saw this film with Linda Blair. She wouldn't even name it The Exorcist. She would just say this movie with Linda Blair. That's all she would say. And she'd always would tell us, movies like that one will not let you sleep, will not let you eat. My life was ruined for years. Like she was so passionate about how this movie ruined her and how she had to pray and go to church. But I mean, when you think about it, that movie broke a lot of borders. Like I don't think anybody back then had seen anything like that. And also, I mean, rumor has it, a lot of conspiracy theories of like very weird things happen on that set.
Yeah. A lot of it was, sort of stoked by the publicists themselves at the time,
yes.
So it spread even further. But yeah, the idea of something, like pointing a camera at a taboo subject and then welcoming it into the world, I guess was the sell, right?
I couldn't agree more. Like now, once I was in film school and really started to dive deep in the world of filmmaking, Exorcist was one of the first films I wanted to be like, oh, I got to watch all the behind the scenes. Because, by that age, I do believe in a lot of things. So I couldn't agree more with you that if you talk about, some of the unknown and the supernatural, you are in a way making yourself and the space you're in vulnerable to something.
Yeah,
I don't have the answers of what that is, but on that set, I believe a lot of it. I really believe a lot of it. There's incredible footage in the film that was not cut out, that was real. Like when the mom gets slapped across the face, and it cuts to her falling and she hits her head. That all is real. Her fall was not supposed to happen.
Yeah, burst and wrecked her back on it. It was, there was real physical, the stunts were far more or far less protected, I guess. That's what I'm trying to, like, the people got hurt. People talked about creepy cold rooms and all of that things. Jordan Navarez and I were talking just the other week about Suspiria and how the whole thing is based around the idea of the feeling that if you speak the devil's name or you show supernatural machinery, you're somehow encouraging it.
Exactly.
In the real world, right? Like yes. It's not that depiction and endorsement are the same thing, but it's more about invoking a presence or inviting something in, which I think is it's almost charming because it implies that you're able to stop evil in the first place. Like if you're faithful enough or you're devout enough, then that will keep the devil away. Where, living in the world just teaches you that chaos is everywhere and that bad things happen to good people all the time. And there's always an excuse. There's always a way to explain it. Right. But The Exorcist is also about that. It's about evil invading a single mother's home, like pushing its way into this quiet, well-appointed world, like a suburb of Washington where everybody has money and everybody's successful and everything is fine. And all of a sudden this little girl starts to act out. And Stephen King in his book, Danse Macabre, wrote beautifully about the idea that it's like a conservative response to the permissiveness of the 60s, where William Peter Blatty's book found a way to sort of articulate all of that about how now all of a sudden we can't control our children anymore. It must be the devil. And Friedkin decided to make it as if it was a documentary, which I think is the genius of it, right? Like it feels verite. It's like you are trapped in there with these people. And that's like I keep saying this month, but this is my favorite kind of horror where it's completely realistic impossibility.
Exactly. I mean, it even shows, the past flashbacks of maybe where this started. And to me, it shows that you can welcome not even just the devil, but you can welcome bad energy if you're looking for it, and it will come. And it will show in whatever shape, size, ever. It's something that I think us consciously sometimes don't realize. Even just when we're in as simple as when we're in a bad mood, nothing gets better. As well as when we're always so negative, things don't get better. And in this case, physically welcoming so much dark instead of light into your lives. There's so many metaphors in this film too, that it took me a very long time, because I've seen it a lot. And for a long time, I did think very much with this breakdown you gave of how children act out. We right away lean into faith. Maybe that is the cure to a lot of this. But the more I watched the film, and just recently, I was in a documentary for Shudder, a horror documentary, and I had to talk about The Exorcist, and so I rewatched it for fun, and a new perspective that just popped in my head that I guess because I was looking for, is there more to this movie? Was in the very specific scene when the mom had a lot of the doctors over at her house after they've tried all the machines, all the things on her to see what is wrong with her brain, what is wrong with her. And there's those psychologists and all those doctors at their house, and they're asking Regan questions. And it was at that moment where the doctor asks her, is there someone inside you? And she says, sometimes. And the way that she said that, I right away, I gasped. I went, I said, this movie is also about taking advantage of a woman's body. I never saw it like that. I said just taking the choice to a woman's body, to a child's body. And I remember so clearly hearing her vulnerable, innocent voice of this young teen, this kid saying, sometimes. I was like, oh, it just gave me the creeps. I'd never seen the film in that perspective. And I really admire that, for such a long time, I think horror has been showing us such dark and real subject matter, themes that sometimes we're afraid of talking about. I never thought The Exorcist did that. I never really saw it that way until I rewatched it for the 20th time. Yeah. That this is it's not just the literal devil, but the devil can be as well luring in choices that get taken away from us. So as a woman, we fear that every day of our lives. I mean, even just saying the word rape scares me. I don't like saying it.
Sure.
And watching that scene, it opened a whole can of worms, my friend. And I was like, what? The Exorcist? No way. And then I just kept watching it like that for the rest of the hour and a half left. And I saw it in just completely different from what you just spoke about.
It plays out, though. This theory does, I'm thinking of so much of it, and simply because of the time in which it was made, right? It's all men debating what to do with Regan and how to treat her. The priests are men, obviously.
Exactly. And the mom has no voice either in it.
Yeah.
Not once nobody wanted to hear her. Not once was she able to do how she wanted to do it, to the point that she had to beg for help at the church.
Yeah. I'm thinking about the scenes where Chris takes Regan to the lab for the tests, and that the Spinal Tap sequence has always stood out to me as the most excruciating thing in the film, because it's real violence. It's you can see everything that's happening. You can see the pain. There's no question who's doing it. Everyone in the theater can identify with that moment. But it's also that the doctor just isn't interested, right? It's so clinical, and he's not talking to the kid or the mom, and they're both in such pain.
Totally.
It's so weird and depersonalized. Say what you will about the devil, at least he's taking an interest in this child. And while it's never, there's no opportunity. That's a terrible way to frame it, actually, because there's no opportunity to imply that Regan is enjoying any of it. She is being fought over. She has no say in it either.
She's such a innocent young child. I mean, I was like, oh damn, we were sprinkled with this perspective from the very beginning, when her mom's like, what are you doing, when she's got the Ouija board? Oh, I'm just talking to someone. Okay, who is it? Captain Howdy. Girl, don't talk to strangers. It's the same thing.
Yeah, but Howdy is a friendly word, right? Dead, it's a happy name. It sounds inviting.
It sounds inviting. Exactly. And she's just a kid. So of course, all this just really lined up for me watching it like that. And just this family, of a single mother. It's not easy. You look at movies like Babadook that are recent.
Yeah.
We really do show flawed and weaker characters that are in the female body, that are female, portrayed female. And I ask myself, I wonder when we will show, a different perspective to that. When will our hero or our lead can actually be okay with being flawed, be okay being weak, be okay with having some sort of mental health issue, that they can still get through it, and that they are the hero without having to find the help. And I have yet to see that, I still think Regan's mom had to find somebody to help her. I think in the Babadook, her kid had to be the one to help at the end. Sorry for those listening. Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, it's fine. If you haven't seen the Babadook by now, I mean, we can't help you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. I don't feel too bad. But I really was having trouble pointing a film where somebody with truly, truly, truly tough situation can be able to figure things out, and that it's okay.
It's funny.
I mean, I tried to do that, and it's hard. As a storyteller, that's really hard. And I tried to do that with my feature debut, Culture Shock, with the lead character, because I felt like you have to be very, you have to be in a very dark moment in your life to want to risk everything. And in this case, it's crossing the border. It's not a choice you just wake up and want to do. And
and crossing the border while heavily pregnant. I think we have to,
heavily pregnant,
for people who haven't seen that, that's a huge deal.
It's a huge deal, exactly. So I was really trying to put a lot of these thoughts of how I was seeing a lot of female characters in horror movies, how I can make her just figure things out on her own. And I kid you not, it was not easy. I almost had to layer problems on her,
right?
Of how she got pregnant. That wasn't even on the script before. I had to layer, somebody tried to talk her out of it twice, with the midwife in Mexico trying to tell her, no, don't. So it was a really interesting challenge to do that, because I was watching so many of these horror movies where I'm like, it's okay, they can do it by themselves. Let's show that. Let's prove that. And I guess, that's it was eye-opening how much more, I don't even know if the word research is the right word, but how much more we need to push ourselves as storytellers to tell authentic stories from a point of view that we don't see often. So that's my goal from now on, to just really push boundaries with lead characters, that as complex and as broken as they are, to be able to fight their own demons, I guess. Because I wonder what it would have been like if Regan's mom in The Exorcist was able to not beg for the help. I wonder what it would have been like if it was just her fighting this, just her. Maybe it would have been really scary and life risking. But I'm curious. I like to ask myself these weird questions. Even though I love these movies.
Well, she says she describes herself as a lapsed Catholic. So there is definitely a story there, right? If someone who has to plunge back into their own history to figure out how to fix the problem in the present. Maybe, just sort of not a remake so much as a companion piece or a
totally
a new story. They sort of teased it in that short-lived television series where Reagan ends up being part of the story as an adult. But it's that legacy thing that kind of works and kind of doesn't at the same time, because you just feel
it's forced.
Yeah, you can't. It's like the idea that you can't make an Amityville movie without the house, which is true.
Oh yeah, that's true. You need the house. House.
But that you can't make an Exorcist story without Reagan or Father Karras or Father Merritt. You can. I mean, that's the whole point. This stuff is cyclical, and it's why Exorcist 2 ends up going back to Father Merrin's original case in the 40s, because they throw it away in a line of dialogue in the Friedkin film that not since have I had this sort of evil. It's like, well, we got to show you that. I mean, that was in the 70s, where now it's knee jerk. It's how you make the next movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would love to see something like that takes all the authority and the structure away and just forces one person to save her kid on her own.
Totally.
And I believe, like, Ellen Burstyn makes us believe that she could do it. Like,
oh, I know.
Chris McNeil is an incredibly strong character.
So good in it. Oh my goodness. I mean, not to change the subject too much, but I just thought about it. If I was to make because I haven't yet, because I'm too scared. If I was to make it, because I'm very spiritual too, so I believe in everything. But I'll have to go like the James Wan route, that he has priests on set blessing the set.
Really?
I don't think, yes, there's amazing behind the scenes footage that you see this priest blessing. I think it was
like the Conjuring
one
films?
of the Conjuring films. Yeah. And they're blessing the set, blessing everyone on the crew. Everybody's praying. I was like, oh, I need to make that part of my contract. There needs to be a priest. So I don't, and I haven't heard any spooky stuff that has happened on those movies, but I don't think they had that in The Exorcist.
No, the Catholic diocese wouldn't go anywhere near the film. They tried to have a band. They tried to have a band, all of it.
Yeah.
I need to back up though and ask you, when was the first time you saw the film? You said you rebelled against your mom, but how old were you?
Oh, I didn't tell you how I rebelled. That's right.
Please. Hey, it's Norm, interrupting my own show to tell you about my new Shiny Things newsletter, a weekly dispatch about physical media, culture, and maybe even the odd streaming thing. This week, I wrote about Tom Cruise turning 60 and the new 4K release of Edge of Tomorrow, one of the few films that turns his super capable screen persona on its head, and reviewed the marvelous Marcel the Shell with Shoes On. Subscribe for the price of a latte at shiny-things.ghost.io or find a link at the Simcast Twitter account. I'm writing about movies again. Come check it out.
So when I was 8, again, I was like, why am I not allowed to watch these things? And my favorite thing as a kid was to go to Blockbuster and walk the horror aisle. And I loved looking at all the cover photos of all the VHS films. Yeah. And I loved
kids today don't know what they're missing.
I know. And it was like the coolest part because we rented movies all the time in Mexico. But I'd always kind of go towards the horror aisle because I would never rent those with my family. Mm-hmm. So I was always making up what the movies were about just by the cover. And the cover that really caught my attention the most at the time was Child's Play 2, because Chucky had giant scissors cutting a little doll's head. And I was like, to me, that was like so morbid and dark. So I ended up stealing the VHS. I took it. It was so bad. And I think I only got through 20 minutes because I got too scared and I didn't understand fear. I didn't get it, but I kept smiling. Of course, long story short, I got in a ton of trouble. I got grounded and I had to apologize to Blockbuster and I had to do all these things as a kid. And my mom was so mad. But that moment, I didn't understand until The Exorcist I saw. But I didn't understand how a movie could follow you, could stay with you, could get glued to you. And I was so convinced Chucky was in the closet. And I was like, whoa, the character in the movie is out of the TV. I didn't understand it. And I think it's because I was kept away so much from horror movies.
Yeah. It's that invocation, right? The idea.
Yeah. So then The Exorcist came back out. It was remastered, new color correction.
So this was the 2000 director's cut.
Correct.
Okay.
So it was like remastered, deleted scenes added. Everyone go back to the theater and experience The Exorcist. So that was my first horror movie at the theater. And I rebelled and I did a whole kid tantrum, like you said, losing control. The devil got inside me. And it was my birthday. And I was like, Mom, I'm turning a 2-digit number and you can't tell me what to do. And I'm going to choose what I want to do. And I want to see The Exorcist and blah, 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 blah. And I just exploded. And so my mom tried the whole reverse psychology of it, like, okay, I'll take you. I was like, oh, really? Oh, yeah, I'll take you and bring your cousin too. I was like, are you sure? And my mom's like, yeah, let's go. And I was like, okay. And my cousin and I, Norm, we were bad kids. My cousin and I were those two of the same age that don't put us together because we will break something.
Okay.
So this was like a lesson. So she drops us off and I'm like, Mama, aren't you coming inside? And she's like, no, I'll pick you up in 2 hours. I was like, ah! So I started to feel like, oh my God, my mom abandoned us. Like I started to really feel like, oh no. And so, yeah, my friend, we came out crying out of that theater, but I was crying happy. And my cousin came out crying like life was destroyed, crying. And there was something about that experience of seeing a legit horror movie that I realized only horror movies can follow you home. And then I soon realized as I got older, no, movies in general can follow you home. They can start conversations. They can start debates. They can start theories and breakdowns. And I mean, look what we're doing right now, right?
Yeah.
So it was that day I got home. I was like, okay, Linda Blair's in the room with me. She's under the bed. And I use that every day as inspiration. What can I do when I tell a story to have the audience take it with them? And in this case, you know, with my feature debut, Culture Shock, it wasn't anything scary to that extent, but I felt so strongly as a Mexican and as an immigrant who moved to Canada, to another place, and just watching from afar the border crisis happening live, Trump becoming president and all his choices, watching it live, everything from far away. I felt that Culture Shock was not a job or an opportunity of my first film. I really was like, this movie is a responsibility to talk about something. And in this case was about all that. And I wanted so badly to people watch Culture Shock. And by the time it was over, to be able to talk about it for days later. And I'm so happy you did that. And oh boy, speaking of Twitter, that you brought this up at the start, I was, my goodness, attacked left, right, and center from them supporters being like, don't make movies again, you know, like you're not even American, like all these things, like poof. I was like enjoying every second of it, like it's working, they're talking about it. You know? And even for some immigrants, it was just so amazing to see a movie depicted the true horror of what that is like. And I think the best screening I had of this film, because it did a lot of festivals, was in Canada, in Montreal, at Fantasia.
Right, of course.
It was probably the best screening ever for Culture Shock, because there was one immigrant from Latin America in the audience, sold out audience. And he just put his hand up, you know, during the Q&A, thinking he had a question. And he literally said, I don't have a question. I just have a comment. And I just want to say thank you. Because my parents immigrated here from, I can't remember where exactly, but from South America. I was born here. And my parents have always struggled so much to tell me how they made it happen. And it's been hard for me to ask them, how did you get here? How are we here? And he said, I just cannot wait to show this to my parents, to show that they're not alone, and that, you know, stripping away your identity is such a hard thing to be able to obtain. And my parents struggled for years to be able to obtain their true identity and where they're from. And I just want to say thank you for this movie. And I was like, I could barely take it that day. And he said that his mom's favorite song is the song I put at the end of the movie, which was a fight. Oh my God. That was
Really?
such a fight to get that song because it's also my grandma's favorite song. And it's been such a great experience with Culture Shock to just be able to give something that was so from the heart, and to just look at at this project like a responsibility rather than just a job.
Right.
Yeah, I went totally derailed.
No,
They
no, no.
kind of all kind of connected in a way.
It's fine. And as a matter of fact, I was going to say that while you're talking about Culture Shock, I'm trying to figure out exactly how much I want to discuss. I don't want to spoil it for people
No, for
listening,
sure.
but in a really strange way, your film is about possession, but physical possession, as opposed to spiritual possession.
Yes.
That was my first thought. And then I thought, well, the whole point of the second act is the war for these people's souls. Kind of literally through what's going on and what's happening once people get to the States. So yeah, that's such a strange place to end up thematically. Did you want to, I was going to ask if you wanted to quote The Exorcist in the course of the film, if there's a way in, like if it's something you drew on, but what I'm thinking of more about the way that you use Barbara Crampton, who is this wonderful horror star having an amazing second act right now, as sort of the personification of the American devil is the only way I can explain
very much. You totally got it.
Okay.
You totally got it. Even if not the devil, definitely followers or devotees to that feed off evil, that feed off dark, that feed off negativity. Because I mean, the constructor, the mind of it all was also Creed from The Office, who's so funny and made him the bad guy in this movie. He's never played a bad guy ever. That is like the true pedestal of what I was trying to do. Somebody way up in the hierarchy controlling all this. I wanted him to personify a specific someone that was just taking full control of the US not long ago.
He seems a little more put together, though. Like I can sort of see this guy actually executing a plan rather than just shouting words and wandering off to shout different words. There's a great casual contempt that he has.
Yes, and that was the casual self he is in the world of what he was making, in the virtual world that he was constructing. I wanted him to really personify just God once he was in the machine. Same with who Sean Ashmore, his partner. He gets to be somebody else, somebody happy in the machine, to be able to spread, happiness and do stuff together as a community. Little did he know these people are slaves to it. And Barbara Crampton, she really was to me like I wanted just that artificial, fake dream that we've been dreaming about this whole time.
Yeah.
And that was that character that was super hard to keep, because the original script was very big. It was like a big Pleasantville, Stepford Wives. It was tons of characters, tons of things happening in it. It was very different script, still the same concept. But there was something about Betty, the character of Betty, just always being there. And we were like, this is just the only one we need right now. Let's just keep Betty. And casting Barbara Crampton was so last minute and so like a lucky thing, because it was very close to shooting and we could just not find anybody to play Betty. Nobody had that.
Oh, wow.
And then I was like, oh man, what do I do? So then Barbara Crampton popped in my head. I was like, wait a second. I just became friends with her. She's a little younger than what I was, because I wanted the Betty Crocker thing.
Okay.
She's a little younger and she's very hot. She's very pretty. I think this could work. And, she doesn't live in LA. She's not a local. We can't afford it. Ah, damn. But luckily, that same 24 hours, this email comes in. And oh my God, God is good. This email comes in that says, here's a list of iconic horror actors that might be fun to give cameos to. And guess who was number 2 on the list? Barbara Crampton. So I just kind of went, see, you guys, bring her. And so that if it wasn't for that email, I don't know what would have happened, but Barbara was so cool that she saw my past projects and she was like, I just want to be part of your movie. So I'll help. I'll find my way. And she flew herself to be in the movie too. And oh my goodness, it's so cool when either an actor or crew or whoever, just you read something that is, you can tell that there's something in this project. And when people just want to be part of a project because they believe in it,
yeah,
I think that makes a massive difference in any project you're part of. If everybody in it believes in it, something special is really going to come for it. And I mean, everybody really, every day on that set, I think also because it was very current what we were talking about.
Sure.
You could feel this tension, but also this enthusiasm from everybody, the entire cast, the entire crew, that we wanted to make this special. And also, I mean, we were nervous. We only had 16 days. So I think it was a mix of, oh my God, can we get this done? But everybody was so into this movie, especially the cast, that it really, it's still some of my most favorite memories of my life.
Well, that's great. I mean,
yeah.
You reverse exorcisted it, right? Like
yes,
you put something
exactly.
good into the world and they came for it.
Definitely. Oh my gosh. Definitely. And listen, like speaking of, bringing all these spooky things, the last thing I just shot, which I can't wait to share to the world, we shot in Mexico in Catemaco, Veracruz.
Okay.
And that is the most dangerous, scariest, not because cartel, I mean, there is, but it is the spookiest, most haunted place, the staple mark of witchcraft and Satanism in Mexico. And this is Catemaco, is the place where all brujos and shamans are. And that is the place where even politicians go to get cleansed. Cartel members go to get cleansed. People go pay big money to put hexes on others. And they do the most terrifying pentagram, like massive pentagram sized rituals and sacrifices. It is very scary there. So of course, where did I want to make the next thing? There.
Yeah, it sounds like a great location.
It was amazing. And, I brought my longtime partners from my true Canadian, non-Spanish speaking partners, best friends, Rainer Shima and Luke Bramley, who are the co-founders of Luchagor in Vancouver. Mm-hmm. They were so excited, so scared that while we were making this new project, I can't wait to soon announce it, but definitely stay tuned. What we were making was so about all that sure enough, spooky things, just like in The Exorcist, were definitely happening on the set. Things were moving. We kept hearing things. We were losing things. Equipment was going staticky. We built this terrifying shrine. I'll tell you a couple scary anecdotes or memories that happened. So in one part of the movie, we had to build a massive shrine. And I think our production designer did it too legit, too spot on of all these things that room specifically felt there was no air. And we kept all the doors and windows open because we have a lot of candles. But the moment you walked in, it was like all air was sucked out. And she put these voodoo dolls that were hanging, made out of wood. Branches.
Okay.
They just started spinning. Catemaco is hot. There's no air or breeze. And they were spinning. And at one point, we were filming and the key grip, he didn't need to put lights inside because there were so many candles. So he just turned on the little flashlight in his cell phone and just shook his phone to kind of emulate candle lights. Mm-hmm. Super easy. And the end part of the story here is, so we're filming. And then the two electrics, the lamp ops, they come rushing into the set, scared out of their minds and pale, looking for the key grip. Luis, are you okay? Are you okay? Just interrupted the shot. We heard you calling our name. Are you okay? And Luis and all of us were like, what's going on? Luis is like, yeah, I've been in here for the past 40 minutes filming. And then the two electrics were like, what do you mean? What? And he's like, what do you guys mean? You just interrupted the shot. And I said, what's going on? And they went so pale. And you know when you see fear in people's eyes? Mm-hmm. Okay. These guys had true fear in their eyes. And they were like, Luis, that was you outside yelling for help. You were yelling for help. You were getting hurt. And Luis was like, that wasn't me. And so we had to stop the set. I said, God, well, we've got everybody 5-minute break. Go pray. It was like all these things. I have stories for days on this shoot, but it's just interesting how we started this conversation like that. And it just happened to me. But yeah.
So it's been 22 years. The Exorcist finally caught up to you.
A little bit. Luckily, our film has a little bit of a happy ending in a way. But uh-huh. When we were making very specific moments that were very spiritual to the culture and the faith in Mexico, I'm a big believer, Norm, that you can open up the door to something unexplained. I truly abide by it now.
Wow. Well, I'm still going to see it. So, if you're trying to scare me off, it's not going to work.
Perfect. You'll hear about it very soon.
My thanks to Gigi Saul Guerrero, whose new film Culture Shock is streaming in Canada right now on Hollywood Suite. Thanks also to Laura Steen. She knows what she did. You can find Gigi on Twitter at Horror Guerrero, HorrorGuerrero, all one word. And you can find The Exorcist on Blu-ray and DVD from Warner Home Entertainment. It's also streaming on Crave in Canada and the Roku channel in the US, and available to rent or buy on most VOD platforms. As always, you can find me on Twitter at Norm Wilner, and you can find this podcast there at Semcast, SEMcast, and on the web at someoneelsesmovie.com. The first year of the podcast is still available for just $20 at payhip.com/Semcast. That's the first 52 episodes of Someone Else's Movie, 46 of which aren't currently available anywhere else. And check out my newsletter, Shiny Things, at shiny-things.ghost.io. I think you'll enjoy it. Our theme song is by The Last Year. If you like it, or the show in general, please say so. Leave a review wherever you've been listening. Every little bit helps. It truly does. And check out the other shows on the Frequency Podcast Network while you're doing that. Stay safe, watch movies, wear a mask if you go out, get your booster when you can. I'll see you next time.